All right. In our previous Let's Talk, Giri Maharaj, we discussed innovations that our Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, introduced or presented, and some adjustments, etc. So then that gave us the inspiration. Let's take a look back in time and history, and let's take a brief look at some of the innovations, adjustments, and things that were introduced into not just the preaching, but to our sampradaya overall, which are still followed today. So it's a variety of things that we have listed here. And what we want to try to do is we want to try to keep this to an hour or under, but not 2 hours like the last talk. We get a lot of complaints about these long, drawn-out talks. So let's try to stick to the points. But believe me, there's a lot of very interesting material in this. So the first one that we're mentioning here is that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta introduced the Sannyas ashram into in the 20th century. He introduced Sannyas ashram into the Gaudiya-sampradaya. And now, although that may be for most of us an accepted fact and what have you all, there's certainly always some controversy swirling around that. But it's accepted in all branches of the Gaudiya Math, and it's accepted in ISKCON, which is also a branch of the Gaudiya Math. And forgot, before we go further on that topic, you may have noticed, those of you who are watching, we had a new lead-in screen from our previous one, and that shows the Adbhuta Mandir at Yogapith, the birth site of Lord Chaitanya. And up in the right-hand corner is a logo, and that logo is the logo of the Gaudiya Math. Furthermore, it is the logo of the Gaudiya-sampradaya in the line of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And I say that because this logo was also adopted by Srila Prabhupada, our Guru Maharaj, and it is painted on the gates of the Mayapur Chandradurya Mandir in Mayapur. That's painted on either side of the gate as one enters the property off of Bhaktisiddhanta Road. So we'll get back to that, and we're going to talk about that. We have some nice quotes and information about that. Quotes Srila Prabhupada explaining some of the aspects, meanings of this logo, and everything like that. And it's a very, very interesting topic. So anyway, now back to the sannyas. So Bhaktisiddhanta introduced sannyas in 1918 into the line of Bhaktivinoda Thakura, the disciplic succession of Bhaktivinoda Thakura. And this was we say it's rather accepted today. It was extremely controversial for the times. So prior to that, the stage of renunciation was known as Babaji, and the dress was white, known as Babaji Vesh, and it was white because that is known as Paramahansa Vesh. The dress of the Paramahansas was white, and this is gathered, or this is understood mainly from the time of the Goswamis, Rup Sanatan, were renunciates, and they were not Tridandi Goswamis as we know them today. And so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta introduced the Sannyas ashram, and it has two functions. Many times we only speak about the function of preaching. Sannyas is for preaching, and certainly it is for expanding the preaching. Mahaprabhu himself took sannyas in order to expand the preaching, because as a householder in Navadvip he was not accepted, and people automatically in India and Indian culture would respect the sannyasis. But in our Gaudiya tradition, by the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, the sannyas had vanished, although Mahaprabhu had quite a number of sannyasi associates. And there were different types of sannyas, like Gadadhar sannyas, Kshetra sannyas, etc. So Mahaprabhu himself accepted sannyas, but there is the internal meaning of sannyas also, and in a sutra or in a word that is called Radhadasyam. It is for the service of Srimati Radharani. So sometimes people want to say, well, no, it's not. No, you can argue all you want. That's comical for Kali Yuga. People argue about everything. Now they even argue about gender, like, is a boy a boy? You shouldn't really call him a boy because maybe he doesn't want to be a boy when he grows up. So people argue about everything these days. So, but I point to the simple thing that if sannyas is only for preaching, there's no necessity of any special mantra. And the mantra that sannyasis receive at the time of sannyas is Ragamarg mantra. It is a Gopi Bhav mantra. And it is a Radhadasyam mantra. Mm-hmm. There are other statements because there are some variations to that. But it's taken either as a Gopi Bhav or a Gopi Janabhav mantra, because there are two variations to this Rag Marg mantra. So, but the point is, if sannyas is simply for preaching, it doesn't require any kind of special mantra, especially a mantra like a Rag Marg mantra, like a Radhadasyam mantra. So there are two meanings of sannyas. There is the external meaning for preaching, and then there is the internal meaning also for the internal development. And I just might throw in here before we move on to more relishable and tasteful topics that there have been many sannyasis in the modern time who have fallen down. And after observing this for nearly the last 40 some or close to 50 years, my personal opinion is there are many reasons for this happening. But I put one reason on that list is because they have neglected the internal development and just addressing the external. And certainly that's very, very important. And Giri Maharaj you have some quotes to read to us from Srila Prabhupada and from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and a couple stories to tell as we progress here that are nothing short of shocking. And in my whole life as a devotee, I have never heard that quote that you gave me this morning about Srila Prabhupada. By Srila Prabhupada speaking about preaching in Russia and what you may do. Very amazing. All right, so we can get to all that. Let's just move on.
There was one thing I just wanted to mention, Guru Maharaj, about the sannyas thing. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, once he was in Vrindavan, and a Babaji asked him, why you were dressed like this? This is not our line. Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, Tridandi sannyasis are the servants of the Babajis. And that Babaji was very happy to hear that. He said, no, you misunderstand. We're the servants of the bona fide Babajis.
We're the servants of Rup Sanatan. Puja Ragapata Gaurava Bhange. Take a lower position. Actually, the sannyas dress is a lower position. It's a lower dress. The dress of Rup Sanatan, the Babaji dress, is the highest dress of the Paramahansa, Gaudiya Vaiṣṇava. So Bhaktisiddhanta, he preached Puja Ragapata Gaurava Bhange. Take a lower position, a little distant and below, and serve the higher conception. Serve the higher order. So yes, we are the servants of the Babajis, but not these hokey imitation Babajis that we find in the world today. So there's lots and lots. I mean, we can talk about this particular thing, the introduction of the Sannyas ashram. That's a whole video. We should probably make one on that, but we're going to move along more quickly today. So the second thing is, and this is a very important one, and this one leads us to a stage of modern controversy, and of course it existed in the time of Bhaktisiddhanta also. But here it is, point number 2. Bhaktisiddhanta changed the Guru mantra and the Guru Gayatri from that which was traditionally chanted and which we find in Dhyana Chandra Goswami's Archana Paddhati. All right? So those of you who have second initiation mantra diksha out there today in the line of Bhaktisiddhanta, you have the Guru mantra Aing Gurave Namaha. And you have then a Guru Gayatri. So those of you who have second initiation, you're familiar with what that is. But Giri, now I want you to read what was the Gayatri mantra previously to the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, and what was the Guru Gayatri that is given in Dhyana Chandra Goswami's Archana Paddhati.
Right. In the, let's get to it 1 minute. In the Archana Paddhati of Dhyana Chandra Goswami, the Bija mantra is totally different. It was Shrim Glum, Shrim Glum Gurave Namaha, like that. And the Gayatri was Shrim Glum Gurudevaya Vidmahe Gaura Priyaya Idimi Tanno Guru Prachodayat.
So that's quite a significant change in the Bij mantra. I'm in the Bija, in the mantra, and in the Gayatri itself. So the question comes: well, why did he change? Why did he change it? You see, so that is a big topic, and we're going to make a separate video on that also, because it's very extensive. If we go into that here and now, we're going to be a long time on this video today, and we're trying to get to some other stuff. So both for the Sannyas introduction, we're going to make a video on how and why Bhaktisiddhanta changed the Guru mantra and Guru Gayatri. We're going to make a video on that. In the meantime, let me do a little pitch for some book distribution here, book sales. Where is that? Oh, yeah, there it is. This is the book called Gayatri Mantrartha Dipika, which is a book that we put together many years ago on all aspects of the Gayatri mantra. And on chapter 4, which is called, I believe, Akhanda Guru Tattva, Akhanda Guru Tattva, there is a full explanation of why, when, etc. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta changed the Guru mantra, Guru Gayatri, previously given by recorded by Dhyana Chandra Goswami, and why he changed that to the present Gayatri that we have today. So there are thousands of devotees in the world who are both in India and in the Western world, in Russia, Europe, the United States, Mexico, Peru. They're all over the world. They all have the Gayatri mantra. They all chant Guru Gayatri as part of that, and but it is rarely known, and why you have your mantra and why it's important to know what is the history is because in modern days, when the Sampradaya comes under attack, which it does, whether it's the ISKCON branch or the Gaudiya Math mother branch, so to speak, or what have you, the critics point to this fact that you don't have the proper Guru Gayatri. And that's one of the reasons why so many of your gurus have fallen down, ... and they connect the dots in that way. And you have nothing to say. You have nothing to say because but you don't know anything about it, right? So, we're not trying to criticize you for not knowing. We're just saying, if you want to know, here in this book, Sri Mantra Gayatri Dipika, this is a wonderful book, and you can get that online. We'll put the link down below where you can order that if you want. So Bhaktisiddhanta changed the Guru Gayatri, and just in a summary the reason was that the Sahajiyas were misusing certain aspects, and they were interpolating the previous Guru Mantra and Guru Gayatri to give support to their nefarious and deviant activities. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta didn't want to associate with them in any way, so he researched and he presented a very bona fide. He didn't create it, he just represented a very ancient Guru Mantra and Guru Gayatri. which
he
had
wanted to protect the higher thing.
Yes, in order to give protection and to separate from the deviants. In a similar way, he did not allow the harmonium to be played in any of his temples, not even after Artik 4 Bhajan, period. No harmonium. You know, you would be probably, you'd find a bottle of tequila sooner than you'd find a harmonium. No harmonium. Why? Because it's the favorite instrument of the Sahajiyas in Bengal. So he quoted Kartal and Mridanga. These are the instruments used by Mahaprabhu. And so these were to be used, and the harmonium was not to be used because it's so popular for the Sahajiyas. That's another subject. All these subjects that we're covering today require more details. Okay, so the third one we have here is that Bhaktisiddhanta gave Brahma Gayatri to those born in non-Brahmin families. Now, we discussed that in the previous video because Srila Prabhupada carried that a step further and gave his female disciples, the Vaishnavis, gave them the Brahma Gayatri. Well, in the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, and pretty much still in the Gaudiya Math, which is his disciplic succession directly, just like today's modern ISKCON is supposed to be Prabhupada's direct, our Guru Maharaj's direct mission and what have you. Brahma Gayatri is still not given, well, it isn't, I'm sorry. Step back. In the Gaudiya Math, the Brahma Gayatri is not given to women, but it is given to men in non-Brahmin families. And this in itself, in the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, was a huge protest. A huge protest. All right, so we've kind of covered that before and mentioned it in other videos. So the fourth thing is that, now this is very interesting for us today, because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta divided the process of initiation into two parts. First initiation, Harinam Diksha, and second initiation, Mantra Diksha, or as we call it today, Gayatri initiation. Prior to the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, all this was given in one initiation.
Right.
Now, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta did sometimes still do that. There were many occasions, and the initiation of our Guru Maharaj, our Srila Prabhupada, was both initiations on the same day. He received his Harinam, he received his spiritual name, Abhay Charanaravinda Das, and he received the Gaudiya Mantra Diksha, the mantras of the Gaudiyas, Kama Gayatri, Gopal Mantra, Brahma Gayatri, every Guru, Guranga, everything, all in one day. So Bhaktisiddhanta did sometimes do that, and Srila Prabhupada, our Guru Maharaj, was not the only one to receive. I don't have a list of those who did, but he was not the only one. But the standard became, and it was introduced by Bhaktisiddhanta, and that's the standard which mostly Srila Prabhupada followed, was mostly giving Harinam after 6 months, and after 6 more months, one may be eligible for Brahma Gayatri or Mantra Diksha. Though Srila Prabhupada did on occasion also give first and second on the same day. I can't remember who. I used to know ones for sure. It might have been Brahmatirtha or anyway, I can't remember.
There's a couple of devotees I can think of that they got that. Yeah.
And there was one devotee that Prabhupada gave first, second, and sannyas to on the first initiation.
Right.
Do you remember his name?
I
I think that was Prabhav, Bhakti Prabhav.
I think Gaurava Swami also, possibly.
Possibly, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bhakti Chiru Swami got first and second together.
Yes. So there were occasions of first and second on the same day, and there were some rare occasion of first, second, and sannyas all at once. So these are exceptional exceptional. But that is more like the old system also. But this system was introduced of dividing the initiation into two parts. And that's primarily what was and what still is, at least in most of the branches of the Hare Krishna movement. All right. Now here we start to get into something a little bit interesting here. It's going to turn out some interesting stories. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta introduced dressing appropriately to meet VIPs. Bhaktisiddhanta's motto was first dress, then address. Dress means first dress, then address, speak. And in this line, he often dressed his disciples for preaching in very sophisticated clothing. Black turbans, white shirts, three-piece suits. That means pant, shirt, vest, and full-length dinner jackets with pocket watches on brass chains, and spats. Most of you probably don't, or most of us probably don't even know what a spat is. Spat is still used in the military. It's an overlapping thing that wraps around the top part of your shoe and part of your ankle. It's usually white. So he dressed his disciples in that way. And I'm going to just put up a picture here for a minute. We're going to get back to this. And in it you will see, I think this is the right one. Hang on. Nope, sorry. Another one. All right, so here on the screen now, our viewers can see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta on the right. That's the governor of Bengal, John Anderson, in the middle. And on the right-hand side is Tirtha Maharaj, who was in those days known as Kunja Babu. And he was secretary of Bhaktisiddhanta. So you see he has a very tightly wrapped black turban. He's wearing a white shirt. He has a black waistcoat. He's wearing a longer dinner jacket, and he is sporting a pocket watch. And he wasn't the only one dressed like that on this day. So we're going to come back to this picture, but that's just an example that, this dressing appropriately to meet people of distinction, and people of distinction meant kings, queens. Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples even met with Goebbels just prior in the early 1930s.
Yeah, mid-30s, yeah.
Mid-30s, when the Nazis first came to power in Germany. And actually, Goebbels attended the Vyasa Puja of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. I believe it was in 1933 or 1934, right in that 34's.
He was the guest of honor.
Guest of honor at the Vyasa Puja celebrations of Bhaktisiddhanta. And just a snippet of that story. On that day, the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta were due to meet Hitler, but just minutes away from their meeting, some high-level political something or other arose, and Hitler was off to some other meeting. But he was just like 2 arms lengths away when some message came to him, and he had to turn around and go somewhere else. Those were very intense political days in Germany at the time. So in these meetings, Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples would more than not dress in traditional European dress. You see. Now,
I just want to add to that, Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta also went to Vrindavan with his disciples in that dress.
Yeah, that was a controversy. We're going to get down into that too, but let's just mention that now. When Srila Bhaktisiddhanta went for the first time taking his devotees to Vrindavan, he drove into Vrindavan, which was unheard of, in a motor car.
Right.
He drove in a motor car, He was wearing leather shoes, and he was accompanied by devotees, not all of them, but a significant number of them were dressed in Western clothing. Western clothing means leather shoes, press pants, sports coat or dinner jackets,
waistcoats,
and looking like they're off to the
races or something.
off to the races, off to the club for a few drinks or something. Yeah, and there's poof. This raised a big stink, Okay, so now that brings us to number 6, Yukta-vairagya. Bhaktisiddhanta preached Yukta-vairagya, engaging devotees in seemingly mundane activities for the purpose of advancing the Lord's service, such as riding in motor cars. What ashram, what temple, what householder in the world practically, maybe householder, what temple doesn't have a car? If actually, at one time, the Radha Damodar party in the United States, I had joined that party just at its very end in its last few months. They had like 8 Greyhound buses or 7, 6, whatever it was. They had a good number of Greyhound buses. And at one time, they had 53 Sankirtan vans for 125 brahmacharis and I think 3 sannyasis. 53 Sankirtan vans. And here, just riding in a motor car means a car, you see, was outrageous for the time. It was totally outrageous. And of course, and he introduced meeting with kings. Mahaprabhu himself would not meet personally with Prataparudra. Swamis were, sannyasis, renunciates were to distance themselves from the kings and the rich and the famous, the pound, shilling, pence men, the rupee men, heads of state. So this was very revolutionary. Bhaktisiddhanta sent his disciples out, and they preached to the kings of Tripur and the Maharaja of Bharatpur, the Maharaja of, Baroda, and so
Mysore.
Mysore, king of Mysore. Bhaktisiddhanta was special guest in the guest house of the king of Mysore in Mysore, India, in Karnataka, and that still goes on today. But once upon a time, that was outrageous for a member of the renounced order of life or a holy man of any type to actually go and meet with a pound, shilling, pence man, a king, a head of state, an aristocrat, an industrialist, the CEO of some big company or something. Unheard of for the time. He also introduced the using the printing press and engaging in Krishna conscious periodicals and publications. Such as the Daily Nadia Prakash. Was a daily newspaper.
Dainika. Daily Nadia Prakash. Gaudiya was monthly. Harmonist was monthly at a point. The English one. Paramathik was the Oriyan monthly newspaper. Kirtan in Assam was the monthly newspaper. Many.
Amazing thing was these were all going on at the same time.
Yes.
Or mostly, there was some overlap
Basically,
and everything like this. They weren't all on the first day at the same time, but at a point, he had daily newspapers going on in several places. He had monthly magazines going on in several places. He had the monthly magazines going on in different languages. Some devotees were up all night. Newspapers hit the street in the morning. They would be up all night, hand typesetting, by hand typesetting. And then brahmacharis going out, distributing and selling these books. And these are all seemingly mundane activities for the time. And again, this drew much criticism from an otherwise orthodox, traditional line of spiritual teaching and practice in India. All right, so in this vein of Yukta-vairagya, means engaging everything in the service of the Lord, or those things which we can engage in the service of the Lord. So at the top was the printing press and the daily magazine, daily newspapers and the monthly magazines. So at this point, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta declared the printing press the Brihat Madanga.
Yeah.
All right. So let me just put a picture of the logo up here, Gary. And did you have, before I put that up there, did you have some quotes on that? You had some quotes from Srila Prabhupada, right, describing
I did, yes. There's a letter to Rai Ram.
Okay, now I have the logo up on the screen. Everyone can see the whole logo.
Okay.
All right.
So in a letter to Rai Ram from October 71, Srila Prabhupada writes to Rai Ram and says, our process is to accept both the lines of Bhagavad Marg and Pancharatriki Marg. Perhaps you might have seen the picture of the Gaudiya mission. On one side there is the Bhagavad book, and on the other side a picture of Lakshmi Narayan for deity worship. You cannot make any progress in devotional service unless simultaneously you follow both the lines. Just as the tracks of a railroad line, both must be there. Similarly, temple worship is essential for purifying us from material contamination, and without being purified, we cannot glorify the Lord. So, that's one letter. Then in a lecture in Hawaii, 1969, Prabhupada says, you have seen the chakra of our Gaudiya mission, you remember? So one side is called Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the middle, and one side is Bhagavad side. Another side is Pancharatriki side. So Pancharatriki side is Lakshmi Narayan sitting on the throne, and Bhagavad side is Radha Krishna. So Bhagavad side is very difficult. Unless one is purified from the Pancharatriki side, it is very difficult to go to the Bhagavad side.
Are those the two quotes you have?
Those are the two quotes.
All right,
Yeah.
so now everybody's still looking at this. So at the top of this logo, now you might mention, give us some background here. This logo was designed by Bhaktisiddhanta. He didn't sit down with the ruler and draw it.
Right.
He told his disciples what he wanted, and they drew it. And it has been from then till now. So give us a little back history on that. From then, what
Sure.
year it was first designed, and then we're gonna go through it and explain what are all these things here presented in this logo.
So this logo first was introduced on books in the Gaudiya magazine in February 1931. So probably it was done towards the end of 1930, but actually introduced by February 1931 in all the Gaudiya Math books and literature.
Okay.
As you can see, there are all the different aspects.
Okay. Well, let me walk everybody through it,
Sure.
and you can explain a couple of things. So as everybody can see, there is a drawing of Mahaprabhu with one hand raised at the top. Now, Srila Prabhupada just said that he explained. See, this is divided in two things. It's actually divided into Vaidhi Bhakti and Ragamarg. So beneath the seated Lakshmi Narayan is the script and the word Vaidhi in Bengali.
Yeah.
And under the Radha Krishna, Prabhupada mentions Radha Krishna, is the word Raga. Raga. So, but it's significant here that the tree above Radha and Krishna represents Vrindavan. Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. So, right next to Mahaprabhu on his left, which is our right, is the Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
And on his that's on his left, and on his right is Pancharatric literature.
Yeah.
Now, it down at the bottom of the Vaidhi, you have the Artik, and that says Archana.
Yeah.
All right. Now, correspondingly, on the other parallel side, in the Ragmarg, and this is what gets significant. In the Ragmarg, you have the Mridanga, and you have the printing press.
Right.
And above it is the word Kirtana. So the Kirtan with the Mridanga and the Kirtan with the printing press, both of these things have been put in the Ragmarg section. So some people want to say that preaching is only Vaidhi, but here we find preaching in and the high sound of preaching, the Brihat Mridanga, the printing press, it is Rag Marg. So that reminds me of one day I was visiting a sannyasi friend of mine in Gaudiya Math who used to have a mutt in Mathura, and he asked me a little bit in a kind of a, I don't know, challenging or semi-sarcastic way. He said, "Oh, how is your bhajan?" And I told him, "Sankirtan is my bhajan. Preaching is our bhajan. Disciples of Prabhupada, our bhajan is preaching. We don't retire from preaching to do bhajan. Preaching and Sankirtan is our bhajan. And book distribution is our preaching." And that is Ragamarg Bhakti. Well, later on, this same sannyasi argued that book distribution was not any anga of bhakti. But then later on, that same sannyasi got some of his own books printed, and then he was eager to see people distribute his books. So
then it was an anga.
Then it was an anga, a part of bhakti. Well,
right.
For clarifying these things, we want to take a look in the history, and here we find the printing press. Of course, nowadays, if you wanted to do this, you might put a Mac computer there or something like that, or a Heidelberg press. That's an old, early 20th century press. All right, so then at the center of this logo is Om, which is a bij, and Nama, meaning the holy name. So around it, Giri, in the Bengali, or is that Bengali? Yeah, in the Bengali are the 6 opulences of Krishna. You want to tell us from the top and go clockwise?
Yeah. First is Yasha.
But give us an English translation also.
Yeah. Yasha at the top, which means fame. Shri, which is beauty. Jnana, knowledge. Vairagya, renunciation. Aishvarya, wealth or opulence. And Virya, strength.
All right, so the 6 opulences of Krishna surrounding the holy name and the bija, the Om. And I might point out also that mantra, the way it's laid out, if you rise above in a drone and take an aerial shot of the temple at Chaitanya Math, just up the road from Yogapith in Mayapur, you see that this design is used as the foundation. And if you take the words of Brahma Samhita, we'll have to do a separate video on this. If you take the words of Brahma Samhita, which describe the spiritual world, and bring the sound vibration, the mantra, and bring it down to a piece of paper and draw it as a yantra, this is what you get. And Bhaktisiddhanta then used that as the foundation and foundation temple design for the temple at Chaitanya Math, just up the road from Mayapur, just up the road from Yogapith.
There was one incident I wanted to mention in regards to this logo, and that was one Pandit had approached Bhaktisiddhanta after seeing this logo, complaining that everything in this logo is traditionally Indian except the printing press, which is a foreign invention. Why do you put the printing press? And Saji Thakur's response was, anything used in Lord Chaitanya's kirtan is neither foreign nor Indian, but aprakrita. So when it's used in Krishna's service, the press is as sacred, it's as holy as the arti paraphernalia or the mridanga and the kartals. Yes,
I think devotees frequently do remember the yagya of Daksha, when Lord Shiva, I forget happened, but Lord Shiva attacked the yagya of Daksha. No, Lord Shiva created a big demon.
Right, Virabhadra.
What was his name?
Virabhadra,
and he attacked the yagya of Daksha, and there was heads rolled, arms flying, blood everywhere, whole play. And then at the end, everything was adjusted, rectified. Daksha got the head of a goat, and the yagya was performed. Srila Prabhupada mentions in the comment that blood is considered one of the most contaminating things. If something has been touched with blood or anything like that, it's considered impure. If you are bleeding in any way at that time, you are considered impure, whether you're a man or a woman. It's because blood is impure. And but then they just washed up the place and they did a yajna. Anyway, there in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that by performing devotional service, even an unclean place becomes clean. So anything used in Krishna's service, any place used in Krishna's service, becomes purified, becomes transcendental.
One question is there about why Lakshmi Narayan is in that logo, Guru Maharaj?
Well, because Lakshmi Narayan, primarily Lakshmi Narayan is in Aishvarya, in opulence, in awe, in reverence. I believe Srila Prabhupada, did I ask you if you found the references where Srila Prabhupada says actually, well, it stems from this. Yeah. Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. And Krishna, as his deity, Krishna himself, Adi Swayam Bhagavan Sri Krishna, never leaves Vrindavan, also never leaves the side of Srimati Radharani. Even when Krishna is with Balaram, that is called what is that called?
Swayam Prakash.
Swayam Prakash. But that's not the Adi Swayam Prakash. The Adi Swayam Prakash, the Adi Bhagavan is Krishna with Radha. So even in the Lord's pastimes with Balaram, that is his first very good expansion. And with others, and when Krishna kills a demon, that is even further, one small step removed from the original Krishna. The original Krishna is always engaged in transcendental loving pastimes with Srimati Radharani, not with Chandravali, not with anybody else. The original personality of Godhead. And he never leaves Vrindavan. So Srila Prabhupada mentions that our worship of Radha and Krishna in other places, whether it's Rukmini Dwarkadish or wherever, Radha Parthasarathi, Radha Londonishwar, this is actually in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan.
I just found the couple of letters from Prabhupada to Satsarup and Yamuna, Madhusudan. Yeah, he mentions that.
You want to read just a couple of those others? Sometimes people wouldn't believe it unless they read it. So
of course. I'll just read the most important parts of the letters. So this letter to Madhusudan, January 1969, Srila Prabhupada says, in the training period, we are only worshipping Lakshmi Narayan. We worship Radha Krishna because Lakshmi Narayana is there also. But actually, we do not worship Radha Krishna with our present deity ceremonies. We are worshipping Lakshmi Narayan. Narayan is there when Krishna is there. But actually, we do not worship Radha Krishna in their original form. Then to Satsarup Maharaj, he writes, actually, although Radha Krishna is worshipped in Vrindavan, which is like a simple village, but we worship Lakshmi Narayan, and the worship is accepted by the Radha Krishna deity. Actually, in our present status, we cannot worship Radha Krishna. Then to Yamuna, he says, in our temples, the deities Radha and Krishna are worshipped as Lakshmi Narayan, with all the opulence of their majestic lordship in Dwarka. The worship of Radha Krishna as they appear in Vrindavan is a very advanced stage. So we worship them in the temples as Lakshmi Narayan.
That reminds me that when I first did go to Vrindavan, it was, when was it? It wasn't until January, I think, 1976. Krishna Balaram Temple had opened the year before. And I was told at that time that Srila Prabhupada said, I don't know, I've never went and looked for it. I know I personally heard Srila Prabhupada say things because he said them to me and I didn't have a tape recorder. I was in a room with Prabhupada, knocked on his door, went in his room in Hyderabad, sat down and had a conversation with him and didn't think to bring a tape recorder or something. So, but some people would say, well, if it's not recorded, we can't believe it. So, fine. But I was told, and it makes all sense to me, when I first reached Vrindavan, I was told there by the pujaris, because I wanted to go on the altar and do an artik for Krishna Balaram and what have you. And I was told that Srila Prabhupada said, one artik in Vrindavan is worth 1,000 artiks anywhere else in the world. Of course, except Mayapur, you see. Anywhere else in the greater world, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, London, Paris. One artik in Vrindavan is worth 1,000 artiks anywhere else in the world. And I have never forgot that since. And although maybe you can't, and I can't, and maybe anybody can't prove it's not recorded, nonetheless, you begin to analyze all the aspects of what is the holy dham, etc., 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 and it's just like, yes, it falls into perfect logical conclusion. That then that the worship of Radha and Krishna in the holy dham is, because there Krishna Balaram is Radha Shama Sundar, that is the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his original form. All right, so I think we just had a little bit of a digital disruption there. You know.
Yeah, a bit of a glitch there.
Yeah, we'll see if
it's back to normal again.
We'll see if that turned out. All right, so where
did you show the pictures of the gate?
Oh yeah, so
Srila
Prabhupada explained this, and he's saying, "Have you seen?" Did he say "our" or "the"?
He said "the."
The. Right, so.
Yeah. Oh, and no, no. Have you seen the chakra of our Gaudiya mission? He said.
Yeah, our Gaudiya mission.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
You know, because of the short period of time, like I pointed out just the other day, when Prabhupada came to America, we'll have to get that letter and put it up here for devotees sometime. He wrote Bhakti Vilas Tirtha Maharaj, who was the Acharya in the 1960s at Yoga Pit, and he wrote him and invited him to come to New York and become the Acharya of the mission, and Srila Prabhupada said that he would be a worker on behalf of the Gaudiya Math and Vallabh Tirtha Maharaj, not Vallabh Tirtha Maharaj,
Vilas Tirtha Maharaj.
Vilas Tirtha Maharaj as the Acharya. Mm-hmm. So, yes, there was a time when there was some friction between Srila Prabhupada and certain of his god brothers, but that was not the average relationship for life. He did not have an abrasive relationship with his god brothers since the early 1927, I believe, 1927, when he first since 1922.
Right.
All the way up to into this, to the late 60s before any kind of a little friction developed. And it ended when Srila Prabhupada called for the war to end, to the friction to end. Mm-hmm. So, devotees don't like to, it's like I ask Christians, say, what religion was Jesus? And they go, well, he's a Christian.
Wore a cross, right?
Yeah, Christian wore a cross. That's good. Jesus wore a cross. He wore a little hamaka. Is that what you call it? A little beanie they wore? Yeah. He was a Jew. He was a Jew. What scripture did he read? The Bible. No, not the Bible. He read the Torah. He followed the laws of Moses. He was a rabbi. He was a Jew. Well, who the hell invented Christianity? Well, if you do your research, you'll find out it was a guy named Paul of Tarsus. Okay, that's a separate topic, Christianity. So, Srila Prabhupada was a member of the Gaudiya Math. He was initiated in the Gaudiya Math. He was initiated by the founder, Acharya of the Gaudiya Math.
He worked in the Gaudiya Math.
He worked in the Gaudiya Math. He wrote articles for Gaudiya Math magazines, etc. So, in 1970, what was it, 70, what was that? 70, it must have been 77 because I was already a sannyas. Whoops, not that. In 1977, all right, I'm going to put this picture on the wall. This is a modern picture. It's just taken I don't know when, maybe a few days ago. This is a picture of the front gate of the Sri Mayapur Chandradoya Mandir in Mayapur. And on the right and left-hand side of this gate, you will see the Gaudiya Math logo. Now, it's not painted in its entirety there because the 6 opulences are missing and maybe a couple other little things. Oh, yeah, the tree above Radha and Krishna is missing. But overall, that is there. So let me go ahead and put a close-up. Okay, so here's a close-up of the gate. And here's the mantra underneath is something else. That's something different. But the logo above. So I arrived from a, where was I? I arrived, let me put that logo back up on there again. Okay, the whole gate is up on the screen there. So I arrived in a bus from Krishnagar about, I was a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks before the start of the Gaur Purnima festival in 1977. And Srila Prabhupada was already there. So I got out of the bus right in front of the gate. And I clobbered, what do you say? I hobbled along. I was wearing my wooden shoes, and I came out of the bus and had my shoulder bag and my danda. And there was a godbrother named Pandu who was an artist, and he had a small little table there, and he was painting the one on the right. And it's been repainted over the years, but anyway, Pandu was painting this logo on the right. And so I walked up to Pandu and we started talking, and I asked him, what's this? And he said, this is the Gaudiya Math logo. Prior to that, I never saw it, never heard of it or anything like that. He said, this is the Gaudiya Math logo. Srila Prabhupada wants it painted on the gates, on the gate here at Mayapur, on both sides of the gate. So one may ask, why would he want the Gaudiya Math logo painted on the gate of ISKCON? Well, there are several answers to that. One is that this is not just the Gaudiya Math logo, this is the Gaudiya-sampradaya logo in the disciplic succession from Bhaktisiddhanta. That logo represents everything that we are about. Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti, the type of worship, the books we read,
Yukta-vairagya.
The Yukta-vairagya, the printing press, the Brihat Madanga, the Sankirtan movement, everything is represented here actually in this logo. So it's not just the institution Gaudiya Math established under a certain set of rules with the government. No, it's the logo that represents the parampara of Bhaktisiddhanta. And Prabhupada is having it painted on the gates. And it's a clear and certain message to anyone who knows what that is, that yes, we are Gaudiya. We are Gaudiyas. Now, in modern times, devotees have taken that to mean, we're the only Gaudiyas, We're the real Gaudiyas now, not you.
Yeah.
It's like
we're the real Gaudiya Math. Yeah.
We're the real Gaudiya Math because we have more money than the rest of you, or we do more worldwide preaching than the rest of you. That's certainly a lakshan of ISKCON is big preaching. But you take a look at the number of upasiddhantas that exist in ISKCON, and one could scratch your head and say, how many upasiddhantas does it take to make an upasampradaya? Sampradayas are not measured on how big the temples are, how many people are the value of a guru, how many disciples he has. You know that bumper sticker, the one who dies with the most toys wins. So, I've heard it said by some God brothers, one who dies with the most disciples wins.
Right.
Of course, they're saying that sarcastically.
Hopefully.
I don't know. Maybe they're not. Who knows? Yeah. So, but that doesn't mean that big means not bona fide or big means negative.
Okay.
No, big is big, and Prabhupada wanted big preaching. You see. He also wanted a little humility there, please. In fact, when the first Vyasa-san was received by His Divine Grace, he, with a tear in his eye, requested the devotees, please be humble. That was in Los Angeles. Okay, so anyway, so we're into this Yukta-vairagya, engaging everything for the preaching, and we're talking mainly about Bhaktisiddhanta. So, printing press, Briyat Mridanga, he introduced chanting on the kirtans on the radio, preaching on the radio, and now, I mean, nowadays it's like, I haven't listened to a radio in so long, I can't even remember. Really, they still have radio shows, you know? Radio used to be the internet of the day. It was the communication, like, what's a French word for premium?
Magnifique? I don't know.
Magnifique. It was preaching instrument magnifique. I mean, there wasn't a more advanced technology for preaching than the radio. One person speaking into a little metal microphone will go out and be heard by millions. So if today a preacher goes on, primetime TV in London on the BBC and leads a kirtan, oh man, it'd be all over. It'd be all over. Such and such Swami, this one Swami, this kirtan group, they were on BBC primetime. Whoa, so great, so great. And that would be great. Mm-hmm. But when you tell somebody, oh, Srila Puri Maharaj, Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj used to go on the radio and sing kirtan and everything back in the 1920s and give a talk, people go, oh, that's interesting. They have no appreciation. You don't know what that means. You don't know what that means. There were at least 1 million people listening at the time, huddled around radios in little grass huts and mud huts and apartments and buildings and in villas and bungalows across Bengal. That was big time preaching. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, people don't have much of a focus, a prospective vision of the then and the now. And the now seems to be everything. Like the now is the now. It's the all in all, And we have very little regard for the past, but the past was also amazing.
The past created the now. The
past created the now, exactly. Mm-hmm. And like now in Mayapur today, tomorrow, whatever, there are some discussions going about Vaishnavi gurus, women gurus. If they would look to the past of our own tradition, they might get a clearer understanding of who were the Vaishnavi gurus 400 years ago, why they were gurus at the time, what is the standard. What is the standard of Bhaktisiddhanta and the mission of which we are a part of? You see, that might help them, but then it might not. Okay, so you mentioned entering Vrindavan in motor car, wearing leather shoes, and accompanied things. Now, here's a heavy one. Bhaktisiddhanta. Now, please listen to this. I know we've got a little splayed out here so far. I'm talking about different things, but please listen to this. Bhaktisiddhanta arranged when the governor of Bengal, whose name was Mr. John Anderson, when he came to Mayapur with a proclamation. Okay, now I'm just going to stop for a moment and put that picture up on the screen. So here is John Anderson sitting on the extreme left, and that's his secretary. I don't know his name. Both are wearing flower garlands. There's Srila Bhaktisiddhanta sitting behind the desk, and there is a silver, well, I don't know what you actually call that thing, but in it is a proclamation. And in that proclamation is the proclamation that states that Yogapit Mayapur is the authentic birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that would be the equivalent of, let's say today, somebody arranging something in London. I mean, this goes beyond getting the key of London or something, I mean, right. This was big. This you're looking at the second most powerful man in India. The viceroy was above the governor, and the viceroy was the most powerful man in India, next to Queen Victoria and later what was his name? King Edward. Mm-hmm. So when John Anderson came to Mayapur for this event, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta sent his disciples to Calcutta. What was the name of the hotel they went to? The Grand?
I think it's the Grand Hotel. Yeah.
Yes, I believe it was the Grand Hotel, and told them, make arrangements for cooks, for caterers, to come to Mayapur and cook a non-veg feast for Governor John Anderson. And so when Anderson arrived, we have one picture I had up on the screen for a minute ago, put it back up. Here he is arriving. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, look at all the flowers. Look at the flower garlands. These are awesome. Look at the flowers. Flower garland for John Anderson. Big bouquet. Look at the roses. There's roses in there. And he's walking on the red carpet treatment. And he's walked up to the Mayapur, to the temple at Yogapith. What year was that, Yeti?
That was 1935.
1935. So that is after the opening of the Adbhuta Mandir. So the big temple is there. Bhaktisiddhanta is there. All the devotees. John Anderson is special guest. Here they are sitting again. And after the official function was over, well, then Bhaktisiddhanta invited Governor Anderson to come and take his meal, lunch. I don't know how actually he referred to that. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you again, this was a non-veg buffet. Mm-hmm. So, Giri, you want to tell us what happened after that?
Srila Sridhara tells the story here.
Ah, good.
He says, quote, when Anderson the governor, he was invited to Mayapur. At that time, of course, the arrangement was made with the Calcutta Hotel to bring appropriate food for him, including meats and other things. The hostel man was invited to make arrangement for the dishes of the governor and his paraphernalia. Paraphernalia means his entourage, I presume.
And other things means wine.
Mm-hmm. Anyhow, he had to do. And in foreign preaching also, when he told about that, I modestly protested that the meat dishes, non-vegetable dishes, if served in the Math compound, then there will be a blame on the mission. Guru Maharaj said, means Bhaktisiddhanta, no, thousands of births ago I have decided all these things. We have to do anything and everything for the service of Mahaprabhu. That was his answer. Vaikuntha vritti, no kunta, no limitation. Anything I am prepared to do for the service of Mahaprabhu, for the propagation. The grace of Mahaprabhu should be distributed in the length and breadth of the whole world. And for that anything should be done. No stone unturned. Physical connection is no connection. We shall try to save our internal purity. That is all.
That's super. So there are two things here. If everyone can bear with me, there are two things. I want to fill in a little bit on this story, and then I want to add an overlap in this story. So on this day, so then when it was time to come over to the tent that was set up with nice white tablecloths and everything befitting the governor of Bengal, the second most powerful man in all of India. So they went over to that arrangement, and it was explained to him that we have, brought a caterer and this and that, and you have a selection of nice dishes, etc., like this. So at that time, there was a lot of political revolutionary attitude in India, especially in Bengal. So the story is that Anderson, we heard this from Srila Puri Maharaj, Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, that Anderson thought, well, the Hindus, a Hindu might have poisoned the things that come from the hotel, the hotelier, whatever you call them, the caterer.
Yeah.
And so he decided that he would not eat any of these things that came from the hotel, but he decided to just take Krishna prasadam on that day because he knew that the Hindus would not poison the prasadam. Mm. So the arrangement was made, but he did not take. So I tried to find this letter. We couldn't find this letter. It was in 1973. I was in Nairobi. It was a letter that was written to either Brahmananda or Chayavana, Brahmananda Swami or Chayavana, who was a brahmachari at that time. Mm. And this letter was so shocking. And Brahmananda read it to us, and we read it about 4 or 5 times. It was just absolutely amazing. All right, so now Sridhar Maharaj has just said that he complained to Bhaktisiddhanta that these things are done inside the mutt will be criticized for being impure, and Bhaktisiddhanta said for thousands of lifetimes, right? So in this letter, 1973, Srila Prabhupada explained, and he said, like, I'm paraphrasing the letter, but the essential parts are very accurate. Okay, but I'm paraphrasing. And so in this letter, Prabhupada said that once myself and a god brother were talking with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta about the difficulties of the preaching in Europe, in England. And Bhaktisiddhanta said, if the people will not come for hearing Harikatha, then you make arrangements at a hotel, and you make arrangements for sumptuous non-veg food, and you invite them to come, and after having fed them sumptuously with this non-veg food, then you preach Harikatha. So Prabhupada says in this letter to us in Nairobi, to the devotees, he says, so my godbrother and I heard this, and we raised an objection, but Guru Maharaj, if we serve meat if we do that, people will criticize us, you see. And then Prabhupada wrote there, he said, and then Guru Maharaj shocked us or surprised us. He said, no, I have thought about all these things for 10,000 lifetimes. So then at that point, let me just continue. But then Prabhupada said, so when I came to your country, I was prepared that I may have to do this. I may have to prepare meat. But I am so happy that all the boys and girls, you like the prasadam. And I think he even mentioned the halava very much, and I did not have to do that. But he said he was prepared to do that. So later, when I came across this transcribe of Srila Sridhar Maharaj speaking and telling the same story, I realized, the godbrother that Prabhupada is mentioning, that he was with, talking to Bhaktisiddhanta, was none other than Sridhar Maharaj. So now, to even further highlight the extremity of what you could do if you had to, now read Srila Prabhupada's, what Prabhupada has to say.
Or what I found this morning?
Yes, to Harikesh Prabhu about preaching in Russia. Go ahead.
So this is from Harishori's diary. He says, Harikesh began to explain that apart from the risks involved, a big obstacle was a lack of funding. He said that even something as basic as finding something to eat was a major difficulty. So if there is nothing else, you can eat meat if you have to, Srila Prabhupada told him matter-of-factly. Harikesh's mouth dropped open a little bit and his eyes widened. Not knowing if Prabhupada was serious or not, he tried to ignore what he had just heard and continued to say that even if he had money, there was nothing to buy. Completely serious, Prabhupada again told him, so if there is difficulty, you can take meat. Harikesh stopped, appeared dazed as he contemplated the possible implications. But Prabhupada, what about my consciousness? Damn your consciousness, Prabhupada replied. You must go on preaching.
Oh, yes. Maybe that's why that quote hasn't made it out there too far in the world today. I mean, that's the first time I ever heard that. All right, so anybody who... Yeah, what can be done for preaching in Yukta-vairagya? Well, if necessary. Now, the bottom line is if necessary. So what's his name again? Harikesh. Harikesh is saying to Prabhupada, there's nothing to eat. There's nothing to eat. It means there's no vegetables in the market, there's no fruits in the market, there's nothing to eat. Then Srila Prabhupada is saying, then if there's nothing to eat, then you can eat meat.
Right.
But the main thing is carry on the preaching. And when he complained, Prabhupada, there'll be some fault to me, there'll be something. Then Prabhupada said, what?
Damn your consciousness.
Damn your consciousness.
But you must go on preaching.
You must go on preaching. So, correct me in this story, Gary. I might have got this a little bit memory off. A letter, yes, it was a letter was sent to Bhaktisiddhanta. It was either during the first group or the second group who went to England. And there was a meeting, a big dinner, like a state dinner. I did have that picture somewhere. I couldn't find it.
Oh, right.
And I think it's Saranga Maharaj sitting at the table.
Yeah.
There's
With
all
Lord
this.
Zetlin.
There's who is there? Lord Nelson. Zetlin.
Lord Zetlin.
That's right, not Nelson. Lord Zetlin is the chief guest at this dinner, and it's a big dinner, and all these Brits and everybody's high society dinner. And the letter was written to Bhaktisiddhanta that at this dinner, the devotees had meat on their plate. They did not eat, but they had meat because they come with all these plates. All these servants come and play at a place and put a plate in front of everybody.
Right.
And they wrote and said there was a meat on the plate, and Bhaktisiddhanta slapped the table and said, "Yes, now we are preaching."
I heard exactly the same thing. I haven't heard anything different to that.
Yeah, I heard it in Chaitanya Saraswat Math. So, yes. So many things can be undertaken when necessary. Necessary. Srila Prabhupada himself, when he stayed in Butler, Pennsylvania, or actually stayed over at the YMCA, but he came over to Mr. Agarwal's house, and Mr. Agarwal and Mrs. Agarwal, they were non-veg, and at a point, some other time, I think it was when he shared an apartment with somebody in the Bowery or something, that person was non-veg, and Prabhupada had to keep his own bhog and what he was going to eat in the fridge right alongside, some non-veg.
Right.
And so, but happily, as Prabhupada said, everyone liked the prasadam, and those days are pretty much behind us now. What to speak of vegetarian, even heads of state and people in politics and sports stars and people what to speak of vegetarians, they're even vegans,
Yep.
The super strict vegetarians, so to speak. Although vegans are actually the ultimate cow killers, but that'd be another video about the vegan cow killers. How vegans are actually cow killers.
Right.
All right, so now this isn't an introduction or an innovation, but this is just a fact. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta built the Adbhuta Mandir at the birth site of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, some devotees have suggested, well, why do you keep beating the old rug, or beating the old horse, as it would be, with this thing about Bhaktisiddhanta built the Adbhuta Mandir? Well, because Bhaktisiddhanta did build the Adbhuta Mandir. That's why. And this Adbhuta Mandir is written about in the visions of Bhaktivinoda Thakura. He had his two actual visions of it, and he wrote about that in a different way years later when he wrote Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. There is where you find Lord Nityananda showing the Adbhuta Mandir to Jiva Goswami at the birth site, not just in the village in general or on the Antar Dweep or whatever, but actually on the birth site, the very house location where Mahaprabhu was born. So devotees say, oh, Lord Nityananda, he envisioned this, but what devotees don't understand is Bhaktivinoda envisioned this first.
Right.
In a vision. He saw a vision. And 2 weeks later, he returned to the same spot and went to explore that area where he saw the vision, and he saw the vision of the Adbhuta Mandir for the second time. Then 7 years later, he wrote Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, and in that book, he says that Lord Nityananda is taking Jiva Goswami on tour of the Dham, and Nityananda reveals. Well, a lot of devotees, they get it backwards. They think that Lord Nityananda revealed this 5,000 years ago to 500 years ago to Jiva Goswami, And then later Bhaktivinoda envisioned it. But the only way we know that Lord Nityananda revealed such a vision to Jiva Goswami is that Bhaktivinoda wrote this in his book, Navadvip-Dham Mahatmya. He gives no reference to it. There's no mention of it anywhere else in anything. And this is one of the things that many people then begin to find fault with Bhaktivinoda Thakur. They just can't accept he's a visionary. Mm-hmm. Bhaktivinoda was a visionary. He had a number of visions, and he was, in a sense, what we call trikala. His visions transcended time and space. So we accept that Lord Nityananda showed Jiva Goswami the Adbhuta Mandir. But your only reference to this is in something that Bhaktivinoda wrote himself 7 years after he had 2 visions of the Adbhuta Mandir.
Right.
And the Adbhuta Mandir is on the birth site. You see? It's just like, where's the Statue of Liberty? New York. Yeah, well, New York's a big place. Where is it? Well, it's out there on, I forget what they call it, not Ellison Island or whatever.
Is it Staten Island?
No, Staten Island's another island.
Right.
Manhattan's another thing. That's all New York for the general observer, but when you get down to it in Google Earth, you're going to go right down to a little island out there in the bay. Now I think they call it Liberty Island or something. It's at a specific location in New York. So the Adbhuta Mandir isn't, and it's not a big temple. Big has nothing to do with it.
Right.
Srila Puri Maharaj said, if Bhaktisiddhanta had built a mud hut, it would still be Adbhut. Mm-hmm. All right? So what is Adbhut? Adbhut means wonderful in terms of conception. And in the Yogapith Adbhuta Mandir, you'll find 3 altars and 3 deities. In the center, you'll find Mahaprabhu with Lakshmi Priya and Vishnu Priya. Mm-hmm. On the right-hand side, you'll find the Panchatattva. And on the left-hand side, you'll find Gaur, Radha, Madhava. Mm-hmm. Gaur, Radha, Madhava. Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya, Radha, Krishna, Nahiyanya. Combined form of Radha and Krishna. This is the most Adbhut in the whole history of theology and transcendence throughout Vaikuntha and the spiritual world and all the material worlds. That is the most wonderful thing, the combined form of Radha and Krishna. Mm-hmm. So if anybody out there happens to be watching, who's on the Mayapur, what they call it, the TOVP, Temple of Vedic Planetarium Committee, and you want to make your temple truly Adbhut, then the center focus should be on Gaur Radha Madhava and not on Radha Madhava and the Astashakis, because that is not the most wonderful conception of divinity. So we got to do that video sooner or later, Giri, on just Adbhuta Mandir, tell the history, the whole thing.
Sure.
So Bhaktisiddhanta built the Adbhuta Mandir, and now we have the Adbhuta Mandir. I'm going to put it back on the screen just for a second. There's the Adbhuta Mandir on the left-hand side of this whatever you call it, screen here.
Well, you've mentioned many times, if the Adbhuta all about size, what if the Sahajas buy land and build something 10 times bigger? Then that becomes Adbhuta?
Well, it had to be 10 times bigger. It had to be just 1 foot bigger.
Right, exactly.
1 centimeter bigger.
Yeah.
Actually, the rumor is that
the Ritviks are
certain
doing the same
Ritviks, when after Mayapur is finished and they're doing their thing and declare their final height, that they're coming to town to build a temple 8 feet bigger. And well, I'm advising them to install Gaur Radha Madhava as a central feature, because that is the most Adbhut conception there ever was, and then they can claim to build the Adbhuta Mandir.
It's more Adbhuta than the other one, right?
I don't know. You know, sometimes I think it's Bhuta. You know.
Well, Bhuta just means material elements as well.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Just material, big is best.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So anyway, we'll move on to the last thing here. Bhaktisiddhanta introduced. Now this is very important. Bhaktisiddhanta introduced what will be the scriptures of the Gaudiya-sampradaya going forward in the line of Bhaktivinoda. Okay, from Bhaktivinoda to Bhaktisiddhanta. What will be the scriptures going forward and what will not be? And in the not be, there are 2 categories. Mm-hmm. there is restricted reading, and there is what's called Apagrantha.
Yeah.
Apagrantha are totally false literatures. Now, we mentioned those some videos back. Like, what is it? Advaita Prakash.
Nityananda Charitamrita.
Nityananda Charitamrita. These are not bona fide literatures, yet we find them being translated, studied by, read by, distributed by devotees in the Hare Krishna movement because of a failure. Can you imagine today if there's a devotee in the Hare Krishna movement, particularly in ISKCON, who doesn't care what Prabhupada said? Can you imagine? At any time going forward, can you imagine if I took you in a time ship, if I took the GBC in a time ship and I showed him a time going forward, say 50 or 150 years from now, where people didn't regard what Prabhupada had to say as being important, what he said do and not do, and then took them back to the present day, they would be shocked. They would think, what can we do to stop this from happening?
Mm-hmm.
Yet they are guilty of the same thing. They don't care what Bhaktisiddhanta, their Param Guru, they don't care what he did, except for when it's convenient.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care what he said. They don't care about the direction that he gave, except for when it's convenient. Well, that's a problem, you see, when it's convenient. You can't... Satovrati isn't a matter, it's not like following the footsteps isn't a matter of going to the supermarket and going, let's see what do we like to follow today.
Yeah, we were saying the other day, they're very selective in picking their Prabhupada sets.
Very selective, you know. For example, if Srila Prabhupada said something negative about his godbrothers, they'll never let you forget it. It will be hammered out, man, chiseled into stone. He may have said 5 or 10 things positive about that same godbrother, 7 of the things, or 3 of the 4 or 5 of the things positive, then said something negative, and then in years afterwards said things positive. They can't. Like the fly, they just stick on the negative. You see, like the fly is attached to the filthy thing. You see? So the negative. And they'll dismiss. Oh, well, I've even heard it say, well, Prabhupada's just being diplomatic. Oh, my God.
Oh.
Now you're saying he's duplicit. Now you're saying he's a politician. You got to be kidding me. Prabhupada would shoot from the hip and put it right between your eyes. He wielded the mace, not a buttercup. He wasn't a love bug tree hugger, a love bomber. He was as it is. And sometimes the truth hurts. So he said something negative and he said something positive. Let's just remember the negative because that suits our bill of sale today. That suits our society consciousness today, you see. All right, so anyway, Bhaktisiddhanta gave what books to read. That we're pretty clear on that. Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Charitamrita we have. Good translation. Prabhupada, good translation. Bhagavatam. Chaitanya Bhagavat, well, there are 2 or 3 or 4 editions out there, and it's like, well, bring your salt shaker if you're going to read Chaitanya Bhagavat. Because there are bad translations, some better than others. Even the good translations sometimes have things in it like Lord Nityananda was a sannyasi.
Yeah.
They haven't done their homework enough. And we look at the Sanskrit and there's no word the Bengali, there's no word sannyasi there. That's another topic. But and the not to books. And then the bona fide books not to read. And Srila Prabhupada Srila Bhaktisiddhanta restricted his disciples, including Prabhupada, Sridhara Maharaj, Puri Maharaj, Kesha Maharaj, Madha Maharaj, Saranga Goswami Maharaj, Yajabar Maharaj, all of them and more from reading Gita Govinda, Ujjvala Nilamani, what are the others?
Krishna Karnamrita.
Krishna Karnamrita.
Krishna Bhavanamrita. Yeah.
These are very exalted, very high literatures. And it's not that he had a bunch of hippies as disciples. And a bunch of, his disciples, although he had disciples from non-Brahmin families. He had most of his disciples were from sophisticated families and Brahmin families. even from the family of Lord Nityananda,
Yeah.
what they call the family parampara of Nityananda,
Yeah.
and other Parshad devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and even to them he restricted. But people just want to say, oh, well, that was then. That was then? Well, what to speak of now?
Yeah, what makes us so more qualified than those personalities?
What makes you so qualified now?
Yeah.
Because you had a lifetime of illicit sex before you were a devotee, because you took a lot of drugs, intoxication? What makes you so qualified for these things now? You see? So fools rush in where angels fear to tread. So to the angels, they feared to tread here, because even a little mistake there will be a big offense. And it will go on your record, Sridhar Maharaj said, and it will be held against you. And the consequence, you will be barred from that domain.
Yeah.
So better safe than sorry is our motto. All right, so these were 8 things that we listed: introductions, innovations.
There was one more there, Guru Maharaj.
What was it?
He coined the term Bhagavad Parampara, the Shiksha Parampara.
Oh, yes, that's right. He coined this term, Bhagavad Parampara, the Shiksha Parampara. And that in itself is a whole essay. We're going to have to wrap it up here because we're getting over the time limit. Mm-hmm. And so that had us do some research, and I asked you, let's see how far back we can trace the term Krishna consciousness.
Right.
Because consciousness being, an English word, Krishna consciousness. So, what did you have there, Giri?
Well, I found out that Srila Prabhupada mentions in a lecture in L.A. 1972, I'll give the quote, he says, in another poetry, Rupa Goswami says, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati, he said, this is our Krishna consciousness. I have taken this from the word Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati. This is the actual translation in Sanskrit. So Prabhupada coined the phrase Krishna consciousness based on this verse of Rupa Goswami.
Yes. So that was good. What year was that?
72.
Well, he's explaining in 72,
but obviously before that.
He started using it even before that. Possibly even, we'll have to look further, possibly even before he came to the Western world. Possibly. He may have written that in an early Back to Godhead magazine. Everything. All right, so these were just 8 of the introductions, innovations, adjustments given by Bhaktisiddhanta. Back to page 1, he created the Sannyas ashram. He brought it forward from antiquity. He created everything to do around with it. He chose the color we will wear, the Gerumati color. He chose the 10 names of the Dasanami sannyas, and then added other names until he had a list of 108 names for the Tridandi sannyasis. He changed the Guru mantra and the Guru Gayatri, a significant alteration, a significant adjustment there. He began to introduce Brahma Gayatri into the non-Brahmin families. He divided the process of initiation into 2 parts, which is mostly followed by most of us. We received it in that way, although there were and are still exceptions to that. He introduced, the principle of Yukta-vairagya is paramount in preaching, and we see that even being extended in his time and then later in Srila Prabhupada's time, if necessary. You can even eat meat or make arrangements for meat to be served to people if that is necessary, and then deliver to them Hari Katha, the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But one must be very careful about that and other such things. Book distribution, printing books, distributing books, all this level of Sankirtan, the Brihat Mridanga, introduced by him. Although Bhaktisiddhanta was printing books and such, Bhaktisiddhanta took it to a paramount level, to a different level, and on and on. Okay, so we covered those things. I hope our listeners found this interesting, as well as I hope you gathered some valuable information, not just interesting, but valuable information. Anything else, Gary, you want to add?
I just did a quick look about Krishna consciousness, and it seems that the earliest place Prabhupada mentions is in an article in 1960.
1960. Interesting. Yep. Not before. Well, we don't have all those back to Godheads.
Well, whatever we have from the 47 onwards, it's in the folio, and the earliest place he mentions apparently is 1960. So, interesting.
Very interesting. So, that's a good thing to remember and to carry forward that Srila Prabhupada coined this phrase, Krishna consciousness. All right, thank you very much, and until next time, Prabhus, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.